All right, it is Thursday's football show. Nathan with you for the next hour. We're going to talk to the former Dundalk goalkeeper Gary Rogers a little bit later on. He's barely out of the game, but he is putting together a very interesting life post-football, so he's coming your way in just a little while. And Kevin Doyle in just a moment. But the latest scores in the Europa League, it is still scoreless on the night and on aggregate between Leicester and Slavia Prague, that one at King Power, while it is also scoreless between Manchester United and Real Sociedad on the night. But Manchester United are leading by 4-1 on aggregate in that one, so comfortably heading towards the knockout stage. Earlier, Arsenal left it late but managed to see off Benfica 3-2, so they won 4-3 on aggregate, while Rangers 5-2 winners against Royal Antwerp, so they went through 9-5 on aggregate for Stephen Gerrard's side. Another big win for them moving into the last 16 of the Europa League. Kevin Doyle, good evening.
Evening, Nathan.
How are you keeping?
I'm very good, thanks.
You put together a interesting enough post-football career yourself. You're going all in on the horses.
All in, yeah.
Big investments lately, I'm hearing.
Yeah, a couple of good ones. Listen, it's horses, so you wouldn't want to be relying on them, but it's what I enjoy doing. So that's what everyone says you should do, isn't it? If you can afford to do it, and it's what gets me up in the morning. It's what excites me. It's what I love to do. So, yeah, horses though, you wouldn't want to be relying on it for your day-to-day income or anything like that, but you never know. One or two of them might work out at some stage.
Gary Rogers is working with George Mendes. It seems we'll get the full details of exactly what he's going to be doing. Your good friend Stephen Hunt has moved into the agency game as well. Was it ever a consideration, that side of it? Was it something that interested you?
No, it never. No. You know, you think about different things in your playing. Could you do this? Could you do that? The coaching side is obviously an easy one. You know, could you get your coaching badge? No. And I did a little bit of coaching I would never rule it out, but right now it's not what interests me. The horse side of things interests me. Stephen Hunt, perfect for being an agent. You know, if I was a young lad and, you know, he'd be one of the people I'd be looking for. He's a friend of mine, so I'm plugging him here. But yeah, it suits personality, suits different people in different ways. I know he works very, very, very hard at it. You know, all over the country, all over Europe. But no, it didn't. No, just never floated my boat. It did with him. He loves it. It excites him, and that's what you need to do. Do something that excites you.
Yeah. I'm looking at this Manchester United team tonight. So they were 4-1 up. They've got a big game, which we're going to have live here on Off the Ball on Sunday against Chelsea in the Premier League. Bruno Fernandes started the game and captaining Manchester United. Now, he did go off at half-time to be replaced by Marcus Rashford. We've heard a lot this season about strength and conditioning and the pressure that's been put on players. How much of an effect do you think this Thursday, Sunday, Wednesday, Saturday pattern that is just never ending between now and the end of the season is having on the players? Like, why would Ole Gunnar Solskjaer start Bruno Fernandes tonight?
Yeah, that was an issue. Surprised he was at 4-0. He's played so many games and he is that important too. I don't know. Listen, we don't know behind the scenes what they have, you know, 1,000,001 stats now about how far Bruno Fernandes has ran in training, how much high intensity he's put in games, and they'll be getting all these figure back, and the sports scientists will be going to Solskjaer saying he's at this level or he's done this much and he shouldn't play, he's a high risk of injury, or he's not, and maybe that's why he started. Stuff we don't know. But looking at it for us, it was a strange decision. I was very surprised. I suppose he can only change so many, but you'd think him being so important, you'd arrested him. But maybe it shows what importance he's putting on the Europa League as well. But at 4-0, like, Jesus, if he's having to play Fernandes, hoping we don't concede and lose this one is sort of very strange. So yeah, I'm surprised. But then maybe he's gone to him, play me. You know, he looks like the type of guy who wants to play every single game, takes every game seriously. Fair juice to him. He wants to stay in that rhythm. I don't think the games week in, week out, you know, that coming on top feature like that, players are so used to it. You know, I wouldn't, and squads are fairly big enough to cope with. I don't see it being a big deal that sense if they're rested right.
Yeah. Because I do remember covering Tottenham when Mauricio Pochettino was there, and when they were in the Europa League, you'd often see Harry Kane come on for 15 or 20 minutes at the end, and always wondered why this was happening. Again, if the tie was already settled, Kane or Son might appear, and apparently Pochettino and his backroom staff had this method that you had to hit certain markers in terms of your speed, and actually if they could do that within the 20 minutes at the end of the game, that would mean they wouldn't have to train the next day, or they could alter their training plan for the next 2 or 3 days, whereas they didn't do that. They'd have to rock into training the next day and hit that speed then to show that they're hitting the certain markers. So I guess there are all these things going on in strength and conditioning that are never fully explained to us.
Yeah, we don't see that. Listen, I would have seen this to a certain level, but not to that detail. You know, when bringing players on for the last 10 minutes of games to hit markers like that, it wouldn't have got to that level of detail. And maybe it has gone to that in the last couple of years. And Pochettino seemed to be really into that side of things, which was maybe why he's such a success. But yeah, we don't know exactly. You know, there's lots. I'm sure Man United have a team of analysts behind the scenes feeding Solskjaer with this information and showing that Bruno Fernandes can play a certain amount more games or a certain amount of times, or when you need to not rest him. They'll be doing blood analysis, to be doing everything to see where he's at, and you know, when he might need a few games off. He obviously does at the moment, but it does show you what the detail teams are going to now. But then, if every team goes to this detail, where's the advantage? You know, it's all right for a year or two. You're ahead until everyone comes on, and then everyone does it. You need to try to find something else. Everyone's doing it. There is no advantage. How
different was it, the strength and conditioning side, from the start to the end of your career?
Yeah, it's the strength and conditioning side might say, say when, Ireland actually, Cork City, we were quite detailed. When I went to Reading, where we had fantastic facilities, we had a fitness coach who warmed us up, who did our gym program, who did everything, with John Goodman, who played for Ireland. You probably remember John Goodman, who played for Wimbledon, very good player. He was our strength and conditioning coach. And he was very good at his job, really, really good, but he was on his own. He had to do everything. He made our drinks, you know, our protein shake. He did everything. You know, we had one physio, one strength and conditioning coach, and that was sort of it. And that was normal. And now, by the time I'd finished, you know, you had so many different people. Steve Coppell, behind the scenes, Steve Coppell was putting our VHS tapes together and putting clips together, you know, whereas we had by the end of my career, there was about 5 people just doing that job. So yeah, just the amount of people, I suppose the finances, everything, and the importance of all those things behind the scene became more important. To me, I just wanted to run out and train. And by the end of my career, you had to do pre-training exercises, prehab, and you had all this band work. You'd spend an hour before you'd ever actually go out and train, getting ready to train, and an hour afterwards when you were done training, just winding down from training. And it used to grate on me an awful lot. But that's just modern athletes, and it all seemed to be so much more about injury prevention by the end than actually, you know, playing the game.
Well, I guess with the value of the players as well, with the value of the players as well, you want to get them on the pitch as much as possible. And was it very different from Championship to Premier League, where the Premier League is having a Championship style season now, where there are games twice a week? Like, what was a Tuesday, Saturday like in the Championship in terms of actually being able to train and change things tactically?
You didn't. You really didn't. It's so many games. It was never, you didn't train. You were all about recovery, all about warm down recovery, what you did the next day, get yourself just going again. And to begin with, when you played in the Premier League, and say you play in the Premier League one season, you get ready and you play in the Championship next season, it's very difficult mentally. And you see a lot of teams struggle to get back into that routine. You're like, geez, we have to play a game again. Because when you're a run-of-the-mill Premiership team, you're playing Saturday most times. You have the odd Tuesday game thrown in or whatever. You're not in any European competitions. You play Saturday to Saturday and you recover Sunday. You might recover Monday with a recovery training session, and you train Tuesday. You do proper tactical work, proper training sessions Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, maybe to a nice easy session Friday before the game Saturday. But in the Championship, you play the game. You need to get on a winning roll because it's very difficult to work on anything once the season starts. Pre-season is very important. The season starts, and the good thing is when you're winning games, you just roll into the next one. You roll into the next one. It's fantastic. When you're losing games, it's tough to change it, but it also mentally, well, we've lost that game, but we don't have time to dwell on it because we have a game in 2 or 3 days, and you can sort of see light. You think, well, we'll just win the next one. So I didn't mind it. Once you got your head around it in the Championship, I enjoyed, you know, the more games I played, the better, you know, rather than a big gap between games. I felt I played better game after game. Go again. It's your body gets into a rhythm. Once you're used to it, it seems normal.
How did you cope with that drop the couple of times you were relegated from Premier League to Championship? Because listen, there's always that emotional final day on the pitch, and then there is that stark realisation of, I guess, probably job losses around the club because the financial hit, and quite often it's probably in your contract as well that as a player you're going to take a financial hit, and as much as you can say all the right things that yes, we are determined to come straight back up, like it's a huge life-changing event. Did it affect you? Did it affect when you made that drop your motivation in any ways?
And then you don't know whether you're going to be transferred here or am I moving house again or whatever it might be. I think it affected me most the first time. I was relegated. We were relegated with Reading from the Premier League. A couple of years in the Premier League. We'd been promoted a couple of years in the Premier League and done really well. And it was a real shock to get relegated. We'd say we were mid-table maybe at Christmas, and everything seemed fine, and we didn't actually drop into the bottom three till the last week of the season. So we never had a chance to even think about really relegation. We always thought we were going to be fine last week of the season. It was like, Jesus, this has happened. And we got relegated. And that hit me hard. I remember I was in a really foul mood, obviously. We won 5-0 the last game of the season. If we had won 7-0, we got relegated in goal difference. And I went straight from Reading Stadium. We were playing away from home at Derby. We got dropped back to the stadium to our cars after the game, and I drove straight from there to Fishguard to get the boat home to just get out of the place. And because we were straight on holidays after that, there was no coming in for debriefs or anything like that. It was good luck. See you in a couple of months. So I drove straight to Fishguard. Got in the door at 6:30 or 7 o'clock in the morning to my parents' house, and my dad was at the door, and he just opened and goes, "Well, what's it like to be a championship footballer?" And I was just, you cruel man.
Wow, if ever there's an Irish dad's welcome home.
Yeah, I know, it was a low blow. It was a punch.
How did you react?
I just walked by and walked in and walked up to bed, to be honest. I didn't comment. I wasn't in good form. But it was a good way, in fairness to him, it was like looking at it after, it was a good way of just, it's not the end of the world, you know? It's not. You're in your own little world, your own little bubble at the time. You're devastated, it's the end of the world, and you can't face talking about it or looking at people. But it's not. No one dies. And you're still fantastically well paid, and you have a chance to put it right the next season, and you're a professional footballer. But you're in such a bubble as a footballer in the Premier League and whatever championship, you're in such a bubble and everything is so important. You're so I suppose sensitive to any little bit of criticism or anything that might be even a joke or it wasn't meant to be. You take it tough. And I did that first one at that first relegation. I grew older. I got relegated with Wolves then a few years later, and you learn. Still not nice at all, but you learn to deal with it a bit better, and you realise, you know, you have a chance. You're a sports person. Put it right the next season. You have a chance to go again.
I forgot about that final day. So Reading played Derby, and this was the atrocious Derby team that got 11 points that season.
Yeah.
And it was Reading and Fulham on the final day. Fulham beat Portsmouth 1-0.
Yeah.
Reading beat Derby 4-0, but you went down on goal difference of 3.
Yeah.
But you're 4-0. You're 3-0 up with 20 minutes to go.
We hit crossbars posts. Honestly, we could have easily done it. It was one of those games. Derby said we're down for seemed like months at that stage. We were away from home, and we could have. We had the chances. And Portsmouth were in the FA Cup final, so they rested their players for the Fulham. Everything was going against us. Fulham had actually. I'm looking back now. It's hurting me again. Fulham were 2 or 3-0 down at halftime to Man City a few weeks previously, and were relegated if they lost that game, and we were safe. This was 3 weeks maybe before that, 4 weeks, I don't know how long before, but they were 2 or 3 down and came back to win the game against Man City away from home, 4-3, I think. Either 3-2 or 4-3 they won. And they just went on a run and won their last 4 or 5 games of the season. That's what caught us on the hop. We didn't think it was possible for them to survive, and it was just such a shock. When I was relegated with Wolves, it wasn't a shock. It happened earlier on. It wasn't the last day of the season, but that Reading one was a killer blow. That.
Do you take a pay cut when you get relegated? Like, does every player take a pay cut?
Yeah, I don't. It's not mandatory. I think would I have taken a pay cut? I think I did. Yeah, I think most of the players at Reading probably. Again, it's your own individual contract. People are in a strong negotiating position, and when it comes to it, they might say, "Listen, you have to take a pay cut when the championship. If we get relegated, you go, well, I'm not signing that contract," and clubs will just say, "Okay, we'll take that clause out of it." So not every. When you see that at the end of the season, every player gets this. That's not the case. Some players do, some players don't, depending on how well you've negotiated it, I suppose. I think I think I did, yeah. At Reading, I think Reading were pretty strong on that one. I think I got a pay cut. Yeah, but sure, deservedly so. We weren't in the Premier League anymore. You should. So,
you didn't even have the backing of your dad in the negotiations. Like, nah, he's a championship player. Punish him. Yeah. Teach him a lesson.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We've been delighted with that as well. Yeah.
Steve Coppell is a manager who's sort of faded away from the spotlight, certainly in English football. I think he spent the last few years over in India. I know Stephen Hunt was talking about him before and just what an inspirational manager he was and how big a figure he was in his career. What was he like for you working with him?
Oh, yeah, I loved it. Like, I'm looking back with rose-tinted glasses, I suppose now. It was a successful time for all of us then. Someone was interviewing me about Steve Coppell only last week. He was two-time English manager, or Premier League Championship, the whole thing, League Managers Association Manager of the Year, 2 years in a row. Which is a fantastic achievement. And the year after that, then he retired and didn't manage again after that. He took a director of football role, I think. I took Bristol City's job for a month and just left it, didn't like it. That was it. He went, as you said, did the thing in India a few times, but what a waste, because he was ahead of his time, in my opinion, at the time, and how he managed.
In what way?
He didn't coach. He walked around and watched. He hired a guy called Wally Downs, which you probably know. Wally Downs is a really good coach. And he was the defensive coach. So the defenders sort of trained as a unit and did their thing. He had a midfielders coach, Kevin Dillon, who was disadvantaged midfielders. And we did attacking by ourselves. We did the attacking thing. John Goodman, who I mentioned there, was our fitness coach, did stuff with the attackers. And we'd all come together at the end of the training and do our five-sides or shape work, whatever it might be. But, he was just the guy who'd walk around. He'd be watching the keepers train. He'd be watching the strikers train. He'd be watching the defenders train. He'd watch time. And when you looked up, you always felt he was watching you. That type of person, you always felt he's looking at me here. But he wasn't a shouter, wasn't a screamer. He'd watch actually most of the game from up in the stand. He'd come down maybe at halftime, come down for the second half on the side of the pitch. But for me, he was the only manager I played under, I think, who was a forward or an attacking player in his time. And I really felt that on the pitch, and how he spoke to me before games or whatever, halftime, whatever. He'd be always encouraging me to take people on. As long as it's in their half, Kevin, run at people, take people on, have shots. I don't care what you do, Why did you pass it back? He'd be getting on to me. I want you to stretch defenders, drive at them. They don't like it, Whereas maybe later in my career, managers, you play with a more defensive mind manager. A manager who's a defender would be screaming at you, just hold it up, lay it off, get out of there. You
give it to Robbie
in the box, and yeah. Well, that worked a lot of the time, in fairness. But yeah, it would be a lot more just your job is to hold it up, lay it off, and get in the box. Whereas he was for not just for me, a striker, all of strikers, wingers. He loved his wingers. And he was not about his wingers. Wingers became goal scorers, I suppose. Wingers are all now needing, Ronaldo changed wingers that they have to get 30 goals a season now, whereas wingers for him were needed to set up goals for the strikers. So I really enjoyed that positive aspect of him. I never felt under pressure to hold the ball up, or if I gave it away, I didn't lose confidence, because he was just like, I don't care, just take people on. If you're running at people, I love it. I want to be excited on the touchline watching my forward players. So I enjoyed that as a player, and you could see any of the sort of attacking players at Reading. We played some good football, scored a lot of goals. Under Steve Coppell, and that was his influence, I think.
His background was a bit different as well. I think he'd gone to college when he was a player, so had probably a different education, maybe a more rounded view on life than a lot of managers.
Yeah, you felt that. You wouldn't know with him whether you win or lost. He wasn't fazed by anything. It wasn't. I don't know. I don't mean to say it wasn't the end of the world, which it is with some managers. That's maybe hard. He did obviously care. He passionate about football, but he didn't show it. He didn't scream or roar. He was very calm, methodical. He was sort of, that the high press thing, which is coming later. He was, I suppose, an early enthusiastic person on that. We have to have a 3-second rule, which brought about our high press at Reading, as we call it. I suppose the 3 second. If you lose the ball in the attacking area, everybody for 3 seconds runs around like a maniac. He had a thing that in the first 3 seconds after losing it was your best chance to win it, the easiest chance to win it back in that first 3 seconds. So if he saw your head in your hands or just put your hands on your hips when you lost the ball for that far, he'd go. That was the one thing that would annoy him. He just wanted you to try to get it back as quick as possible. So if you see all teams most teams have gone to that sort of play now. But yeah, I liked him. He said he was not big on video, but he was doing video, I think, maybe before others, and not massive. We couldn't do it. I said he had a tape recorder and VHS, but trying to get points across to us. He was open to bringing other people in to speak to us, having the sports science type of things. He was open. He felt like he was open to other aspects of football. He wasn't just stuck in one way or another. He was open to new things.
Yeah, I guess from the advice he was giving you as a forward as well, like he had worked, obviously he was an England international, so he would have played with some incredibly talented attacking players, but you think back to that Palace team that beat Liverpool in the Cup semi-final in 1990 and almost probably ended the Alex Ferguson reign before it had properly started. With Ian Wright and Mark Bright, he kneue how to get the very best out of young attacking players.
He did, yeah. And I think it was just like I just said to you, he gave you a no fear, no worry that you do something in the attacking third and he was going to get onto you about. You know, as long as it was sort of a positive type of play. And that's, to me anyway, as a forward, that's all you ever wanted. You know, I hated it if I was trying something and a flick or whatever, what you want your forward, you're trying to create a difference, doing something and a manager roaring at you for messing up, cocking up. You know, it's the exact opposite of what a forward player wants. You need to be creative. You need to be trying to score, trying to do things different, trying to break teams down. So he was all on. As long as it was in the opposition's half, he didn't care.
Yeah. How did you deal then with becoming a different type of striker, a striker who wasn't just about his goals? Because, you know, you played in the Premier League, you got into double figures, first couple of seasons you played in the Championship, you scored a huge amount of goals. And then when you went to Wolves, I think the way you're talking about there, and probably with Ireland as well, were perceived as a different type of forward. One who was more better suited to holding the ball up and providing for somebody else. Because I don't know where you were mentally in terms of scoring goals. I always think back to Michael Owenbin in this studio and his mentality, which just seemed remarkable, and maybe it's a testament to why he was so good, as no matter what happened, he always felt he was going to score. He always had this confidence that if before the match, where if he was in his warm-up, he missed every opportunity, he felt brilliant when the game kicked off because he'd missed all the chances already. If he scored every chance in the warm-up, he'd never been in better form. So no matter what happened, he was in form, he was scoring goals. Were you that type of striker where it was all about the goals, or was there always the side where you were happy to contribute?
I would say when I was younger, it was definitely more all about the goals. I think as I got older, I always felt you'd have a chance or half a chance in games. So you did have a chance of scoring. My style of play changed also with the style of football, to be honest with you. If I was going to be playing for Wolves up front, you play one centre forward up front. Football went from everyone playing 4-4-2 maybe when I was in my my teens and early 20s, to later in my second half of my career, everyone's playing 4-5-1, 4-3-3, especially if you're 4-5-1, if you're in the bottom half of the table. So my style of football had to change. It was a necessity if I was going to play. And I didn't, as much as I loved playing as a young over the top, when I was younger and over the top, I had more pace. Everything would have been in behind, looking to get behind. Whereas the older, I would have lost. I had a bad hamstring injury, mid to early 20s, and I definitely lost a yard of pace for that. So I sort of had to adapt anyway. And my hold-up play became good. My strength, bringing people into play as that 4-5-1 role, it became a strength of mine as well, and maybe extended my career and got me to play until I was 34. So that's the way I look at it. As much as I'd love to play in that 4-4-2 and just, all I thought about was scoring goals, and I'd be happy if I scored. If the team lost and I scored, truthfully, I was probably happy enough, to be honest.
Oh, really?
Which later in my career, past 24-5, that wasn't the case.
Okay.
Which maybe affects your, I do think goal scorers have to be greedy, selfish. Proper ones have to be, just so one-minded, one thought in your head to be the real goal scorers. Like Robbie, who's just had an unbelievable ability, Robbie Keane, to didn't care if he had, not that he did, but if he had 20 chances, I had great admiration for him. He never seemed to affect his confidence. He had 20 chances in the game and he missed the 20. He'd still be as buoyant and is available to score the 21st and still as much wanting to score. And that's unusual in a lot of play. You don't see that as much. Players usually drop off, lose confidence in a game. Whereas he was, people like Robbie Keane were the people who score all, who are really that type of player. Whereas I was probably, in the end, I liked playing. I enjoyed playing football. I didn't care whether I scored or not. I didn't care if I played midfield, left wing. played me centre half. I actually just enjoyed being out on the pitch and playing. And I love scoring. Don't get me wrong. It was always nice to score goals, but I don't know. Whatever way as I grew older, I just started to. I enjoyed. It's just a weird thing to say. I enjoyed the games more. Even if I wasn't playing maybe quite as well or scoring as much as I did in my younger days, I enjoyed the actual football more.
Just been part of it. It was a nice little segue into Robbie Keane, because we've gone off in many tangents. So over the last half an hour, we wanted to talk because I think it's this night 4 weeks that Ireland start with the first World Cup qualifier in Serbia, and we've been chatting during the week about Stephen Kenny's potential team selection. Gary Rogers is coming up, and we'll talk about the goalkeeping selection, which is going to be a big one, whether it's Darren Randolph and all his experience, or Caoimhín Kelleher, who is maybe more able to play the style that Stephen Kenny wants to play, and may, due to the unfortunate circumstances with Alisson, get an opportunity again for Liverpool this weekend. The attacking selections, because again, we've 1 goal in 8 games, and a lot of those players look like they like being on the pitch rather than scoring goals right now. There isn't that killer instinct there. If you're looking at an Ireland attacking 3, which he's by and large gone with so far, what are you looking at?
I don't know. You know what? I've seen the teams you've picked. You did a thing, didn't you?
So we did it. I went with Kelleher in goals, a back 4 of Coleman, O'Shea, Clark, Stevens, McCarthy and Knight in midfield, and Doherty, Howerhan and Connolly behind Callum Robinson. Now that would mean that he is dropping both Darren Randolph and Shane Duffy, which it's a lot of experience for a World Cup qualifier, but obviously both are having very, very difficult seasons.
The back 4, I'd be with you on that back 4. I think as good as Kelleher is and has potential to be, he hasn't played. It's a big game, big call for him to play in that. I don't think Darren Randolph has done anything. I know he hasn't played this season, but he's probably played as much as Kelleher. Maybe Kelleher's a few more games than him. I think he's been fantastic for Ireland. Some of the saves he's made in the last couple of years for Ireland kept them in games. I just think that'd be too harsh a call. I don't think it's the time to drop Darren Randolph, just because Caoimhín Kelleher hasn't really played for and hasn't got that experience either. To throw him straight in now, I know he will be the Irish goalkeeper. Looking at him play, I think he's a fantastic prospect, and obviously everyone does. He seems to just be a natural, confident figure. It doesn't seem like anything would faze him if he did play. I just think it's not right to drop Darren Randolph, to be honest. Back 4, I think you're right. Shane Duffy, if he had had just an okay season at Celtic, not great season, but it's just been such a confidence, demolisher for him, really, and it's so public as well. Leaning forward, looking at the team there, I just don't think he can play Shane Duffy as good as he's been over the last years for Ireland. And you're talking about Caoimhín Kelleher's more suited to Stephen Kelly's style of play. Going to Shane Duffy, he's not really suited to Stephen Kelly's style of play either. I don't think pushing up and holding the high line suits him. When he has to turn and run back to his own goal, and looking at Stephen, he likes to get the team pressed, he likes to get them up, he likes their back 4 to try play out. All things. I think Shane has excelled when in Ireland teams we drop deep, when you have everyone behind the ball and he's making last ditch tackles, he's blocking everything, he's a real leader back there. But I just think when we try to be a bit more press up the pitch, and he's left more in situations where he's one-on-one, I think, and that's happened to him a lot at Celtic, I suppose. On camera a few times we've seen it where he's been caught. So I just think Shane, it's not the time to play him, not time to play him. What
about that sort of front 3-4 then?
It's really that one. The only cert I would say is Aaron Connolly, but as long as he can be fit. I don't think I'd play Matt Doherty there. I don't think I'd play Matt Doherty, to be honest with you. I think if you're going to play him, you have to play him to his strengths. And Jose Mourinho has tried to play him not to his strengths this season. He hasn't done, he hasn't had a good time at Spurs, and that'd be just forcing the issue again with Ireland playing him. It's not to his strength. They played maybe once or twice, Seamus and Matt. I think I remember in Iceland, who was the game where he and Iceland? Gibraltar, yeah. And it should have been a fairly straightforward chance for them to do well together, and it didn't go well. I know it was only one game, but I don't think I think we're away to Serbia. I would play maybe, I'd just get a midfielder in there. I would play. I like the McCarthy Knight combination. I would play maybe Hourihan, where you have Doherty on yours on the right of that sort of three behind the striker. Connolly on the left, obviously, and maybe Malumbi sort of ahead of the two midfielders, just sitting in front of them. You know, we're away from home. I would get sort of legs in midfielder and a bit more defensive minded, I know, but that's, you know, he's a good player. And I like Malumbi when I've seen him, when he's come on for him, he's looked impressive. And then the front one, I'm favouring James Collins, to be honest with you.
Is Shane Long in the mix, do you think?
Yes, I was going to bring that up. Shane, he probably wasn't when you put this team up a few days ago, but he scored a couple of goals in the last week. You know, he would be by and far way ahead goal score wise for Ireland. I know it hasn't in a number of years for Ireland, but if he has he's a real confident player, Shane. If he's confident, he's definitely fresh. He's had some games under his belt now. You know, he would be. You know,
he is that real confidence player then, because obviously, listen, there's any amount of statistics about his difficulties in front of goals in Southampton. He did become that player who was not just a goal scorer, but you think when he's in this sort of run of form at club level, it's quite easy to bring that to international level?
I think, listen, he's older now, but a spark, he's fresh legs, he's still quick. You see Shane playing, he's still as quick as that, and up front there, you know, he's as good as option as any of the others there, better in my opinion. But whether Stephen wants to go down that route, you know, he's sort of, I don't know, he's not picked Shane, he's not had him in a few of his squads. He's sort of as if he's going down another route and he doesn't want them. But, you know, I think he'd be mad not to have him in there. And if, you know, it's another few weeks, but in the next few weeks leading up to that game, if Shane stays in that Bournemouth team on loan, few goals, a bit more confidence again, what a weapon, a confident Shane Long. With his pace experience, the goals he has for Ireland, you know, we don't have the options to be dismissing that and overlooking Shane. I think it'd be, and I'm sure Stephen won't. You know, be mad not to have him in there in the squad with that option. You know, beggars can't be choosers, and Shane Long, I don't know how many international goals he has, but he'd have more than anyone else, all the others in that squad added up together.
Yeah,
and he still has something in him to give, I think.
Kevin, great stuff as always. Thanks a lot for that.
No worries, Nathan. Good talking to you.
Kevin Doyle there with us on Thursday's football show. Leicester 1-0 down at home against Slavia Prague as just over 10 minutes left. As it stands, Leicester on their way out of the Europa League. Still scoreless between Manchester United and Real Sociedad, but United comfortably in front on aggregate. Quick break and we're back with Gary Rogers.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power. Ready for your next big move? The trip from the fridge to the couch. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
On tomorrow's Pat Kenny Show, we hear about the threat of post-Brexit loyalist violence.
There are young loyalists talking to each other, people starting to gather intelligence addresses, car registration numbers of people that they would regard as legitimate targets.
It's almost exactly a year since the first Irish COVID case, the almost unbelievable story of the late Robert Maxwell, and of course, the breaking news.
The Pat Kenny Show.
With Mater Private Network.
Tomorrow morning at 9.
On News Talk.
Free live streaming on all UK and Irish horse races now available on the Doyle Sports app. Fancy that informed striker? Markets now available on shots, left foot, right foot and headed goals. Track your bets and cash out, or stick to your guns with cash out now available on 12 different sports. Doyle Sports. This is betting. Gamble responsibly. See gamblingcare.ie 18+.
Every year the Low Pay Commission makes recommendations to the government on the national minimum wage. These recommendations try to ensure a fair and sustainable wage while keeping Ireland competitive. We want to hear your opinion to allow us present a truly balanced view. Visit gov.ie/minimum wage before March 7th and have your say on the minimum wage.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power. Ready for your next big move? The trip from the fridge to the couch. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
You're welcome back. So, big 10 minutes for Leicester City. 1-0 down at home against Slavia Prague in the Europa League. Manchester United still scoreless, but they're heading through an aggregate against Real Sociedad. Arsenal, Spurs and Rangers also in the draw for the last 16. Gary Rogers is with us, former Dundalk goalkeeper. How are you keeping, Gary?
I'm keeping good, Nathan. Thanks very much.
We were just chatting there with Kevin Doyle about a potential Ireland team, because we're just 4 weeks away now from that opening qualifier against Serbia. There's issues all over the pitch for Stephen Kenny. It seems like a very different atmosphere coming into this than when he first took the job, and it felt like there were loads of opportunity and exciting players emerging, whereas now you're going through the 11 and there's not exactly too many players putting their hands up. But one of the big decisions is going to be in goal, whether it's the experience of Darren Randolph or the emerging talent of the uncapped Caoimhín Kelleher, who has played some big games this season for Liverpool and may well end up playing this weekend? You know Stephen Kenny pretty well. You know his thinking on goalkeepers. What do you think he'll do?
Yeah, it's a really tough one. I suppose it's very interesting. You look at Caoimhín and how good he has been when he came in. I just look back at the Ajax game where he came in and he was flawless in that, and you see his capabilities, and he's certainly one for the future. And obviously, look, he's there right now, and it is a serious consideration that Stephen will have to make. But I would say he's probably unlikely, given the fact that Caoimhín isn't playing and Darren isn't playing at the minute. To throw him in there straight away in the Serbia game. I think it'll be probably one of those where I think he'll go with Darren and probably look to use Caoimhín in the Qatar friendly. I'd say probably looking back on maybe a couple of the games, I'd say he probably would have liked to have maybe given Caoimhín the game against England in Wembley. It would have been a good opportunity to test him and get him, I suppose, accustomed to playing at that level. I don't think he'll have any issues coming into the side. Whether if he does go with Caoimhín, I think he's been excellent, and as a goalkeeper, the modern day goalkeeper, if you like, he's very, very comfortable on the ball and obviously a very, very good shot stopper as well, but he's got loads of really good attributes.
The modern day goalkeeper, how big a factor is that in Stephen Kenny's decision, do you think? Because Darren Randolph had been pretty flawless for Ireland, but made that big mistake over in Finland in a sort of modern goalkeeper way when he's trying to play it out from the back and it doesn't quite work for him. Stephen Kenny is trying to play this progressive brand of football. Do you need a goalkeeper who's able to play that as well, or do you just need the traditional goalkeeper who will, as like Darren Randolph has done consistently, pull off the big saves when they're needed?
Yeah, I think Darren has been excellent since he's taken on the jersey there. He's been, like you say, flawless. I know he did make that mistake in Finland, but I think that's the nature of goalkeeping. He's trying to play a new system. I think he's well capable of playing it too. Obviously, you look at Caoimhín and he's probably more accustomed to it because that's the way he would have, I suppose, grown up playing. So there is, Darren is probably having to adapt a slight bit, whereas Caoimhín probably naturally that's the way his progression has been. So I do still feel that it'd be very harsh to drop Darren and to go with Caoimhín, especially given that he's not playing that much club football. I know he has played against Brighton and he's played a few games here and there, and there may be opportunities to play in the next few weeks. But having said that, with neither keeper playing week in, week out, I think you'd probably be leaning more towards going with the keeper with the most experience. And let's remember, like Darren is only 33, which is relatively young for a goalkeeper. You see Gigi Buffon at 43 still playing at the highest level. So there's still plenty of miles on the clock for Darren, I think.
So why'd you take the easy option?
It's the easy option, is it?
You've been pretty busy since you announced your retirement. So you've got in with the Monaghan footballers. You've got a new job as well with George Mendes, which is fascinating. So his agency, is this their first expansion into Ireland?
Yeah, well, the international headquarters is here in Ireland, but it is their first kind of, I suppose, scouting role here in Ireland. So we'll be looking to, I suppose, find players over here that are playing. Obviously, at the minute it'll be League of Ireland level, but players, making the breakthrough to underage international football and scouting players all over the country, basically, to see what talent is out there and can we help to develop them, and develop their careers further afield as well.
George Mendes, Cristiano Ronaldo's agent, and any amount of Premier League players, big influence at Wolves. I think Matt Doherty maybe is with him now as well. So you're talking about players right now that he deals with at that level, but have they a base of players at every level of the game?
Yeah, there's a number of players all over, and like you say, at different levels, and they play it's obviously you're tailoring to the player's capabilities. Obviously, not every player is a Premier League player, but you're having to identify whereabouts your player will fit in terms of what level he's capable of playing at, and can he reach further and stuff like that. So it's tailored specifically to the players. There's a number of players in the books at all different levels and all different countries all over Europe and further afield. So there's a big portfolio of players there, and obviously we're looking to develop that here. It makes sense with international headquarters here and our proximity to the UK and Europe. There is opportunities to bring Irish players, to the UK market and to others as well.
It looks like Leicester City are heading out of the Europa League, which would be a big surprise. They're 2-0 down against Slavia Prague at home in the closing stages. That's on the night and on aggregate as well. Still scoreless in the Manchester United game against Real Sociedad, but they're just winding down the clock with United 4-1 up. Football and Off the Ball with thanks to Paddy Power. For information on responsible gambling, visit gamblingcare.ie. Gary Rogers is with us. Was this an opportunity you were looking for? Is this something you had in your head when just a matter of months ago you decided to retire?
Yeah, it was more an opportunity that was kind of floated to me, and like it was because of, you know, I've been involved in football for the last 20 years. It was obviously one that I explored, and we had numerous Zoom calls and meetings and stuff like that in order to kind of make the correct decision, and for me to get a better indication of what I'd be doing day to day and stuff like that. So look, it's a really interesting opportunity. It's in football, which is, you know, what I've done all my career, and it's, you know, it's player related, and I've been involved in the players union for 10 years and 5 as chairman. So I've had players' welfare at heart on a voluntary basis, and I'll be looking to, I suppose, continue that in a professional manner now as well.
What is the opportunity in the League of Ireland? Because this is a constant debate, one that you would have been involved in the PFAI, around clubs being able to get the proper value for their players. Are agents now looking at the League of Ireland, considering the success of somebody like Matt Doherty, as a place where they can come and get real value for players?
Yeah, I think our league has often been undervalued. I suppose particularly in the UK market. I know you had Kevin on there beforehand, and you look at the players like Seamus going for, I think it was 75,000 back in the day, and you look at, you know, what sort of transfer fees he could have went for throughout his career if he had a move. But yeah, there's huge talent in our league, and it's probably undervalued. And you look at the opportunities there is for players in our league to go and play at the highest level and play senior football. I certainly think it's more beneficial to play football here at, you know, at professional level. Certainly with, like, there is full time and part time. There's a different makeup of the teams here, but if you can be playing professional football, at senior football at a young age, that will stand to you. And like, teams in our country get to play in Europe regularly, which is another really good test for players, and particularly young players, you know, to go and test themselves against top class European opposition. And like, these are great opportunities for players to progress and, you know, to showcase their talents as well.
What about the younger age group coming through? Because we've seen the likes of Kevin Zeffi, who it seems is making that move to Italy, Gavin Bazunu, two Shamrock Rovers examples, but there's, thankfully, it feels a real good crop of Irish players coming through consistently now. Has Brexit and the implications for players and young players going to England, has that changed things radically? Yeah,
it has changed things. I think it's going to benefit the clubs, because, you know, the younger players now will be more inclined to stay here, because the opportunities to go to the UK until 18 are closed right now. And so clubs will be able to benefit from keeping their talent that they've developed in their academies here. And if they can blood them into the first team, that obviously helps them and helps them develop. But it also helps the clubs that if they sell them on at a later date, that, you know, they would be entitled to greater fees because of the money that would be due to them for developing through their own academy. So, but there is still opportunities to go to Europe as well, to other academies in other countries, because, you know, it's not the same for every player. Some players develop a bit quicker and some a bit slower. So going to Europe to an academy over there may benefit some player like Kevin Zeffi, we see has gone to Inter Milan, and there are cases like that that will suit other players' development as well.
Do you see then that your appointment is going to spark a change in the amount of players going to England? Is this the company making an investment in Ireland?
Yeah, it certainly is the company making an investment in Ireland and looking to develop the talent in Ireland. It's not like, I think, you know, for a long time, I think our underage players have been very much focused on going to the UK, and it's important to, I suppose, see what other options are out there. There's some really technical and talented players in our league that are probably capable of playing or even better suited to playing, you know, in different climates and different football cultures. So you've got to examine that and see what's best for the individual player.
Yeah, it's obviously still very early days in the job for you. Have you seen resistance to that if you've been talking to younger players and their families? Because the path to England is the well-worn one at this stage. There's no language issues. It's close to home. That while, yes, you know it well, but actually, like, you look at the quality of players that are in the Belgian league and so many of those leagues in continental Europe, and how good a track record they have at helping them progress then to the biggest clubs. Is it still a battle to convince young Irish players that actually there's more to life than England?
Yeah, well, I think, look, traditionally, like a lot of people in Ireland are supporting English clubs, and that has been the trend. But you know, you only need to look at the likes of Benfica's academy and Ajax academy and the players, you know, that they have produced over the years. And it's not like a one-off; it's a proven track record of producing players of that caliber. So, and also as well, you've got to look at the amount of players that go away to the UK and come back just as quick. So. It's about developing the player that when he does go, that he goes and he stays and he produces, I suppose, his reaches his capacity in terms of the very best he can achieve. So it's about preparing each player, like I say, case by case, and it's not always the English road. Now it'll still be the most popular destination, I'm sure of that, but it's important to look at the players and tailor to what they need and what might help them progress.
You've gone in with Banty McEnany and the Monaghan footballers as well. Have you had a chance yet to start that job or even get to see the players?
No, unfortunately, look, it's one of those things. We've been on Zoom meetings, and I've done some stuff with Rory where I've been able to kind of send him some drills and stuff like that, and we have been in touch quite regularly. But it's unfortunately the way things have panned out. Football has been put on hold for another while, but. I suppose we're grateful that the League of Ireland will be up and running, and all the friendlies have started to take place now. So there is, I suppose, local sport on the way.
How different is, and do you expect to be, the challenge of coaching a GAA goalkeeper compared to coaching soccer goalkeepers? What's the main area of attention? Is it the kickouts?
Well, the kick out is the one that grabs most attention, but a lot of the time you're probably looking on the technical stuff in terms of goalkeeping, because a lot of the Gaelic goalkeepers wouldn't have received goalkeeping coaching. So when it actually comes to, I suppose, handling and shot stopping and diving and stuff like that, there is a good bit of work to be done there in order to bring those goalkeepers up to speed on that. But the main focus in GAA is the kick out, and there is an awful lot of time spent on that. But at the same time, you want to be able to keep the ball out of the net as well. But there does be a lot of work done on kicking and kicking strategies and stuff like that. But that all comes down to practice as well. So it's the areas that maybe are not as polished that you want to work on as well.
Yeah, and I guess the kick out depends on the strategy in terms of the trajectory you want on the ball as well. You look at the way Stephen Cluxton kicks the ball; it's maybe very different to the way David Clark would have kicked the ball with Mayo, where they float it more into the middle, whereas quite often it's a bit of a bullet with Cluxton. You're working with a good goalkeeper anyways at Monaghan in terms of his kickouts, and Rory Beggan. Yeah,
Rory is top class. He's been excellent over a number of years, and you're right in what you're saying in terms of the goal kick. I suppose you're looking at the trajectory of it is huge, because these guys are making runs and they're trying to find small pockets of space, and you need to get it there as quick as possible. So the style of the kick and the speed of it and the trajectory and all of that does play into it, and that's where the practice comes in. Like, you'll be practicing various different types of kicks for different runs and different scenarios. So there's huge work goes into that, and the guys, I know Stephen has been brilliant, and he's revolutionised the game. Really changed goalkeeping in the GAA, and he has to get a lot of credit for that. And I know there's a lot of debate about the All-Stars and stuff like that, and he probably should have had more. But I think if there was a goalkeeper, an all-time goalkeeper, it'd be going to Stephen. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Yeah, that is for sure. Gary, great to catch up with you. You keeping a close eye on what's happening in the close season in the League of Ireland?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been interesting, obviously, and there's been lots of moving, and even today I think there's Richie Tell joining Shamrock Rovers.
Is that the biggest move of because you obviously spent time playing with him and what a talent he was, and you got probably as high a level as any individual player has got to in the League of Ireland in recent times.
Yeah, well, I got to play with Richie, I suppose. I think he scored 27 goals from midfield that season, which is a phenomenal return, for a man playing in midfield. So, look, Richie coming back into the league will be really good. I think Shamrock Rovers getting him obviously spices up that kind of rivalry with Shamrock Rovers and Dundalk. So it'll be, and apparently I think his first game, that if everything goes to plan and he does sign for Shamrock Rovers, his first game will be against Dundalk after the break. So hopefully we'll have spectators back for that one.
Yeah, hopefully. Gary, great to catch up with you. Thanks a lot for joining us.
No worries, Nathan. Thanks very much.
Leicester are out of the Europa League, beaten 2-0 on the night and on aggregate by Slavia Prague. They're into injury time between Manchester United and Real Sociedad. Scoreless there, 4-1 on aggregate. We'll take a quick break.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power. Fake crowd noise? The Emirates never sounded so good. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
A new car comes with new rules. No food or drinks in the back. Actually, come to think of it, in the front either. Feet down, and those shoes better be clean. And as for the dog, you can forget about it. But then most new cars aren't the all-new Opel Crossland. The stylish, functional, and bold crossover that's ready for whatever family life can throw at it. The all-new Opel Crossland. Beauty isn't scared of life. This is Opel. Discover the all-new Opel Crossland at opel.ie.
At Experts Electrical Stores nationwide, we love Miele's Triflex cordless vacuum so much, we're offering a 90-day money-back guarantee. Handheld for mini messes, reach mode for difficult spaces, and upright comfort for big spreads. Try it and you'll love it. Guaranteed. Get your Miele Triflex cordless vacuum now at Experts Electrical Stores and expert.ie.
Boyle Sports now has dozens of new player markets on the Boyle Sports app, powered by Opta. Fancy that informed striker? Markets now available on shots, left foot, right foot, and headed goals. Or how about total passes, tackles, assists? They're all available on every match. Boyle Sports. This is betting. Gamble responsibly. See gamblingcare.ie. 18+.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power. Fake crowd noise? The Emirates never sounded so good. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
Full-time whistle gone at Old Trafford. Manchester United 0, Real Sociedad 0, but United through comfortably on aggregate in the Europa League. But Leicester City are out. They've been beaten 2-0 at home against Slavia Prague. So the Czech side going through 2-0, both those goals in the second half. Obviously no James Maddison for Leicester tonight. Earlier, both Rangers and Arsenal progressed. Arsenal 3-2 winners against Benfica. Rangers 5-2 winners against Antwerp. So they went through in the end. It was a 9-5 victory for Steven Gerrard's side in that one. Lots of football coming up and Off the Ball over the course of the weekend. As always, John will be here with Dan and Johnny on Saturday afternoon. And then we have 2 live games coming your way on Sundays Off the Ball. First up, it's myself and Brian Kerr at Spurs against Burnley from 2 o'clock. And then at 4:30, big game in the battle for the top 4. And well, maybe even an opportunity for Manchester United still in the title race. Stamford Bridge, Chelsea against Manchester United. Stephen Doyle will be on that one alongside Damien Delaney. OTB AM, 7:30 tomorrow morning. Ronan O'Gara and Alan Quinlan looking ahead to the weekend Six Nations. We have an exclusive launch of the game that we love. Stewie Byrne, no doubt, reacting to John Giles' stories of street football earlier on tonight. Jordan Brown will be on beating Ronnie O'Sullivan. Daniel Harris looking ahead to Manchester United against Chelsea and the crappy quiz as well. And tomorrow night then from 7, we're back here on the radio. Niamh Briggs giving her take on the Ireland-Italy game this weekend. And horse racing broadcaster and pundit Jane Mangan joins us on Friday Night Racing. If you missed anything at all from this evening's show, John Giles on street football, Brian O'Driscoll on Joey Carberry in the Ireland team selection, or Kevin Doyle and Gary Rogers on the football show. It's all available right now on the OTB Sports app. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Good luck.
Give him a ball and a yard of grass. He'll give you a move for the perfect pass.